Hello, my name is Ryan Pastorelli. I'm a registered nurse currently studying at Lamar University in community health nursing. Today I'm going to be discussing with members of the Bridge Homeless Shelter disaster preparedness. Specifically, we're going to be talking about water security during a disaster. Now, anytime a disaster comes, specifically or probably a weather-related disaster, you should have some level of forewarning. You're going to know that it's coming several days out. You'll start to see news alerts, you'll start to see weather alerts. Any of these should tell you that you need to either evacuate or shelter in place, and that should be a warning that you need to get your supplies together. This is a great opportunity to make sure you have everything in your go bag, make sure you have food, make sure you have medications all ready to go. Water in particular is something that you're going to need. Water is an essential nutrient. The average person is going to go through about a gallon of water per day. Now this isn't just drinking water, this is also water for sanitation, washing your hands, brushing your teeth. It's also water for food if you have any particular food items that need to be boiled. If the weather is particularly warm, you're going to need a little bit more water. If you have individuals who are sick or pregnant in your group, you're going to need a little bit more water. Always plan for any disaster to last at least 3 days. That way you have 3 days of supplies on hand, and for any larger group, you're going to need to consider the number of people. A family of 4 will need a total of 12 gallons of water ready to go in the event of an emergency. Now, if you do know that a disaster is coming, you can go to the store and buy drinking water. It comes in 1, 2, and 5 gallon containers, very convenient, easy to move around. If, however, you can't afford those, if there is a shortage of water on the shelves, then you're always going to need to, you can always get water out of a tap. Tap water is perfectly safe to drink up until the time of the disaster. Go ahead and take the time early on to store the water. And the containers that you can use, I recommend plastic food grade containers. Plastic's very durable. It's also food grade, obviously. And it's lightweight, usually convenient. What you want to avoid are any containers that ever held chemicals of any kind in them. You never know whether the chemicals can get washed out. And if you put water in here and then drink that water, you never know if those chemicals are getting into your body. Another concern is plastic containers that held food or milk products. And the reason for this is proteins and fats in food and milk tend to stick to the inside of plastic. Very, very hard to clean out. And if you put any water in here, any bacteria that also gets in here with the water will use the fats and proteins as a nutrient source. And you'll have a colony of bacteria growing in your water, which will then render that water unsafe to drink. You can buy plastic containers, such as this Nalgene bottle, specifically for the storage of water. Alternatives, however, include juice containers, old water bottles, or anything that any plastic container that did not previously contain a food item of some sort. Alternatives, if you don't have plastic containers, you can use glass. I would caution you about glass, however. Glass tends to be heavy, and it also tends to be fragile. If you're sheltering in place, glass is a good option. You can put it somewhere safe where it's not going to get bumped. You don't have to carry it around until it comes time to access the water inside. But if you do have to evacuate, this could get dropped, it could get bumped and break, and then you're dealing with broken glass in addition to the lost water. Metal containers are also an option. Stainless steel and aluminum containers are used as good water vessels. You don't want to use anything that's galvanized, and you don't want to use non-stainless steel, because as soon as you put water in it, the container will start to rust. You can get stainless steel and aluminum containers at almost any grocery store or sporting goods store, and these are very good for carrying water. Another alternative, if you don't have other containers that you can use to store water, you can store water in a bathtub. The average bathtub will hold 35 to 50 gallons of water. That's plenty of water for a large number of people. You will want to clean the bathtub before you store the water in it. Get out any soap scum, get out any hair, any ring in the tub, remove any bath mats, clean out the tub before adding the water to it. Once the water is in it, you have to consider that that is an open container, and debris and stuff can fall into the water. So don't drink the water right out of the tub. We'll get to sanitizing it in a few minutes, but you can use that water for hygiene immediately. Otherwise, you're going to have to treat it before you can drink it. You can also put water in pots and pans. If you're going to be boiling the water anyway, this is a great place to store it. You just take a container, put it right on the stove, boil the water, and it's ready to go. All of this assumes that you know that the disaster is coming. There are, however, some situations in which you may not know that the disaster is coming. If you have a particularly severe storm that was not predicted to be as bad as it was, and you have tornadoes that have knocked out water towers, or if you have flooding that has washed out water mains, even if it doesn't affect the bridge homeless shelter specifically, it can still compromise the water supply. Similarly, you can have man-made disasters. Now, when I say man-made disaster, the first thing that comes to mind is terrorism, and it's a very real consideration. If somebody deliberately sabotages the water supply with the intention of harming people in the community, then that's one of the ways that they could do it. Add poison to the water supply, blow up water towers. But it doesn't have to be terrorism to be a man-made disaster. A construction accident. If somebody's digging around a road and accidentally damages the water main. Now, if it's the water main that goes just to the bridge homeless shelter, you'll still have access to water outside of the bridge homeless shelter, be able to go get water and bring it back. If, however, it's a larger water main, then it could take out water to a very large area. Another consideration is an accident at the water processing facility. If somebody added the wrong chemical or too much chlorine or fluorine to the water could be undrinkable for a time. Now, in these cases, you need to consider where you're going to be getting your water. If a water main is damaged, then you have a chance that you'll still have water pressure. And if the water itself is otherwise safe to drink, you might get a boil alert from the authorities. A boil alert means just that. The water's safe to drink if you boil it. They're concerned about non-treated water getting into the water main usually. If you have no water pressure, you need to consider the possibility that you're going to need to source water from elsewhere. Things to avoid: any kind of stagnant water. That is, water that's sitting in a puddle or even a pond or a culvert that's just sitting there and not moving. Stagnant water is a particular concern because any chemicals or bacteria that have gotten in that water don't move away. They stay there. And as the water evaporates out of that puddle, everything just gets concentrated and it becomes more and more toxic to drink. If the water has a particularly foul smell, even if it was water that you would normally consider safe to drink, for instance from a lake or a river, if you can smell anything in that water, if it's rotten egg smell, sulfurous, if it smells like decomposition, or if it smells like chemicals, that is not water you want to drink. Runoff water is also a concern. Anytime water comes cascading off of a field, particularly in a flood or in a really strong torrential downpour, that water is going to carry any chemicals that have been sprayed on that field. Those chemicals can be fertilizers, they can be pesticides, they can be something that was illegally dumped in that field. You need to be very careful anytime water is coming off of a field, not to drink that water, even though the water may look safe to drink. The way you'll know if it's runoff is if you have a culvert that would normally be dry, for instance along the side of a road or a dry creek bed that all of a sudden is full of running water, that's all runoff water. Flood water is also a form of runoff water, so you never want to drink flood water. Anytime you see floating debris, that's definitely water you don't want to drink because it's probably been runoff or flood water that's flowed into a low-lying area that is now standing water. Water that is safe to drink: rainwater. If you can collect rainwater coming off of a roof, that is probably a very safe source of water. Just give it about 10 minutes for the rain to wash anything off that roof that you don't want to drink. 10 minutes will take care of any bird droppings that have accumulated, any bugs that have gotten up there and died. Just wash them out, be patient, and then start collecting the water. Another source would be any clear running water. If you know of a creek or river where the water is constantly moving and it's mostly clear, doesn't smell bad, then that's probably a good source of water. To make that water safe, however, you need to consider treatments. You don't want to drink rainwater straight off of a roof. You don't want to drink water out of a pond, a lake, or a river until it's been treated. And the reason for this is there are bacteria that can get in that water, bacteria that can make you very, very sick. If you drink even a little bit of it, you can wind up losing more water to the sickness than you can possibly drink to make up for it. Ways that you would treat water. Boiling is obviously the easiest. If you have pots and pans, containers that are safe to put on a heat source, add water to it, boil it for 10 minutes. You want a good solid rolling boil for 10 minutes to kill off any bacteria. One of the big advantages for boiling, in addition to it being fairly inexpensive, is if there are chemicals in the water that you don't necessarily know about, then it will boil off some volatile chemicals. The downside of having to boil water is if you don't have gas or power inside your facility, then you're not going to be able to boil water inside because your only source then is an open flame, and that generates carbon monoxide and smoke. So you would have to boil the water outdoors and then bring it inside. If it's raining outside, then you're not going to be able to start a fire to boil water. You'll have plenty of water, you just won't be able to boil it to make it safe. Another alternative is bleach. Common household bleach is relatively safe. You can drink this in small amounts as long as it's diluted in water. This will kill almost any organism that is in water. This is concentrated bleach. Concentrated bleach, you would add 6 drops of this to a gallon of water in order to kill any bacteria in it. Regular strength bleach, you would instead use 8 to 12 drops of bleach to a gallon of water in order to make the water safe. Bleach is safe. It's safe to drink. It is a chemical, however, and it's a caustic chemical. If you get it on your skin, you can get a chemical burn. So be careful using bleach not to get it on your skin. If you do, be sure and wash it off. Another concern is if the chemical gets spilled, you can wind up damaging any kinds of fabrics or dyes in the area. Another alternative instead is water purification tablets. These are incredibly convenient. You can get these at almost any camping supply store. This bottle contains 50 tablets. It takes 2 tablets to treat a quart of water, so therefore it takes 8 tablets to treat a gallon of water. They are iodine based. You simply measure these out and you can put them in your hand. They're safe to touch. Drop them into your container, wait 5 minutes. Shake the container once, let it sit for half an hour, and it's perfectly safe to drink. Do not take these by mouth, do not put them in your mouth, but they are safe to put in your water. The only downside to these is their price. This bottle costs about $5. 50 tablets, that's about 10 cents a tablet. So 80 cents to make a gallon of water safe. On the other hand, bleach is only a couple of dollars for a gallon, and you only need 8 to 10 drops of the bleach to make your water safe. These are convenient, just keep that in mind. I hope that I've covered most of the bases that you need to know about making your water safe, having a safe water supply during a disaster. I highly recommend that you plan in advance. Long before you even know that a disaster is coming, figure out what you're going to do, what containers you're going to use, how you're going to make water safe. Put together your disaster kit. Be thinking about all of this before the pressure's on. That way, hopefully, you'll be ready well before the disaster itself strikes. Once again, my name is Ryan Passarelli. Thank you very much.